Brace yourself. Gonna blast up anytime now. Collect yourself. Things will never be the same in this sad, sad world.
Good morning and welcome to Humanities class for Monday, April 6th, beginning the third week of our remote learning during this time of quarantine. If you're joining us on YouTube somewhere in the future from some other time or place and are not part of my 2020 Humanities class, you are very welcome here because your existence means we survived this. So I don't know how much you're going to get out of this, but welcome anyway. For my students, a solid 48% of whom are watching right now, I say welcome. I'm recording this on Sunday, and I simply could not scrape together the energy to get dressed on a quarantine Sunday. So this is what I look like on Sundays during the quarantine. In fact, this is what I look like all day, every day, except for when I'm making these videos. I only drag the plaid shirts out of the closet to appear on cam for you guys. Speaking of which, I know you are waiting for it. Remember us? My 3 plaid shirts. It occurs to me that the example I used of the plaid shirts in the last 2 videos may have been just a tiny bit confusing. So I want to clarify. Plato and Aristotle don't talk about plaid shirts. Plaid shirts were just an example of a thing. Okay? We could have talked about anything. It didn't have to be plaid shirts. It could have been monkeys. It could have been onions. It could have been jet skis. I picked plaid shirts because I have a closet full of plaid shirts and far fewer jet skis, monkeys, or onions in my closet. All right? So the plaid shirts were just an illustration. I hope it wasn't too confusing. If it is, like I said in one of my posts, don't let yourself get frustrated. Aristotle is probably the most brilliant person ever to live. If you haven't mastered Aristotle's ideas after 15 minutes when you're 14 years old, it's cool. It's fine. We're going to go through this slowly and we'll use a number of different examples to clarify his important ideas for you. Here's a couple more starting now. I know it may seem like a dream or a hallucination, but school is real, and we actually did used to go there and see one another in person. Way back in those times, in the before times, BC, before coronavirus, we used this example. So if I were to show this picture and ask, what is this a picture of? And Josue were to say, it's a picture of 4 things, well, what he said is true, but he hasn't given me any useful information. Yeah, it's a picture of 4 things, but things doesn't tell me anything. So then Dynasty comes in and she says it's a picture of 3 apples and an orange. Dynasty has given me useful information about the picture. How is she able to do that? How is she able to say specifically that these are 3 apples and an orange and not just 4 things? In order to be able to say that, it must be true that the 3 apples have something in common, something that they share that the orange doesn't share. And we have called that thing that they have in common appleness. The 3 apples have appleness, the orange does not. The orange has orangeness, but we're not talking about orangeness right now. If you ask Plato, appleness, the thing that the 3 apples have in common that makes them apples is a non-physical idea that exists in the world of ideas or the world of forms. Remember, for Plato, idea, form, and ideal form all mean the same thing. And they all point not down to the fruit on our table, they point up and out and beyond this world to another dimension, another realm, the realm of perfect ideal forms. The apples have appleness only because they are imperfect copies or like shadows of the perfect, eternal, ideal form of apple in this other dimension. This is exactly where Aristotle comes in and tells Plato to shut up. If you ask Aristotle, form is something entirely different. A thing's form still means for Aristotle that which makes a thing the kind of thing it is. Plato and Aristotle agree about this. Plato and Aristotle agree that the apples have appleness and the orange does not. But for Aristotle, appleness, the form of apple, is inside the apple. Because all the form of apple are the traits or the characteristics that this thing possesses that makes it an apple. Because three of these things have enough traits or characteristics in common, we give them the same name. We say that they are the same kind of thing, and that thing is an apple. What kinds of traits or characteristics do they have in common that make them apples? Well, all were once part of a living being, specifically an apple tree. Aristotle doesn't know this, but they all have apple DNA. The orange doesn't have apple DNA. The orange doesn't come from an apple tree, so it's not the same kind of thing. The thing's characteristics, its traits, what Aristotle means by its form, give everything certain powers. They're not necessarily superpowers, but they are powers or potential. Potency is an important category for Aristotle, and potent means powerful. You may be familiar with the word omnipotent, which means all-powerful. Usually that only applies to God or Thanos when he has the Infinity Gauntlet. You may know the word impotent, which means powerless. Potency, potential, they mean powers. Those powers come from a thing's form, which is the characteristics that it has. So an apple's form means that it has seeds that can become an apple tree. An apple's form means that it has the power to grow a new apple tree. It has the power, it's a funny way of saying it, but it has the power to be eaten by you. It can be eaten by you. Its form or its characteristics also give it limitations. They build a wall, and the apple's powers bump up against the wall and can't go beyond it. So an apple's form, its traits, its characteristics, do not give the apple the power to eat you. That's a one-way street. You can eat the apple cannot eat you. The apple's form, traits, characteristics do not give its seeds the power to grow into an orange tree. They can't do that. They can only grow into an apple tree. You can't plant apple seeds and grow an orange. You can't plant apple seeds and grow an orangutan. But it would be super awesome if there were orangutan seeds and you could grow one. But you can't. Not Aristotle's fault. What's real for Aristotle is matter, stuff, things that you can experience with your senses. The physical world is what's real. And the physical world is full of matter. Aristotle's living centuries and centuries and centuries before a microscope. So he doesn't have access to the particulars about how atoms are structured and fundamental particles and quantum stuff that I'm not smart enough to really understand, other when I'm trying and failing to impress you. Okay? But Aristotle gets that all we have is matter, piles and piles of matter. And the matter is organized in different ways to form different things. The way matter is organized, in other words, its traits or characteristics, is its form. That's why I just said that like that, to form different things. You want a real short way to understand what Aristotle thinks? For Aristotle, matter matters. Remember those two words, and you'll know the most important thing about Aristotle. Matter matters. When we looked at this chart about the shoe over and over and over again, where Migdalia and Ashley and Brian look at a thing and recognize that thing as a shoe, we know that this is Plato's vision. In Plato's vision, the shoe is a shoe because it is a imperfect copy, a shadow of the ideal form of a shoe in this other dimension. Aristotle looks at this picture and he says, no, the physical shoe you see is what's real. The eternal form of shoe, the world of forms, Plato made that up. It's a myth. The actual form of a shoe is just the shoe's characteristics, its traits. Aristotle would pull this down from the heavens and find it inside the shoe. Because for Aristotle, matter matters. So here's a short version. You may want to put this in your notes, even if you have to pause the video. For both Plato and Aristotle, form is what makes something the kind of thing it is. It's why I can say that's an apple and that's an orange, and not just that's a thing, that's a thing. We couldn't communicate very well if all we had was the word thing. For Plato, the form or idea is outside of a thing, up in that other world. And it is that world of forms that matters. It is non-physical, ideal, spiritual things that matter. And matter itself, stuff, is just a shadow. This world, including everything we know and love in it, are just shadows on the wall in a dark cave. Aristotle is not happy about Plato's ideas. For Aristotle, form is inside of a thing because it is just the characteristics and traits that makes a thing what it is. That means everything that makes you what you are is inside of you. Aristotle says don't look outside yourself to define yourself, to figure out who and what you are. It's in you. All right? Your form is in you. Plato's world of forms is just made up, and matter is what matters. How do I turn this stupid thing on? Computer, record. Hello? Oh. Hey, how you doing? So, real quick, what makes this a plaid shirt? Works just like the apples. It works just like the shoes. It works just like anything. Plato says there is an ideal form of plaid shirt in this other higher dimension. This is just a shadow, a bad copy, and that's what makes it a plaid shirt. Aristotle says, I don't know what Plato's been smoking, but he made up the world of forms. And in fact, this thing's form is just its traits, its characteristics. That's the form. That's what makes it what it is. All that's real is matter, And matter's form or its characteristics make it the kind of thing that it is. What traits, what characteristics does this have? It's shaped like an upper body. It has sleeves. It has buttons. It has crisscrossing stripes. Those characteristics give it certain powers, its potency or potential. It has the potential to be worn by me. It has the potential to be folded up and put in a drawer. It has the potential to be thrown off to my left and never seen by you again. It does not have the potential to fold me up and put me in the drawer. It does not have the potential to turn into the Hulk, all right? Its form is its characteristics that gives it the power to do what it does, that makes it the kind of thing that it is. And the kind of thing that this video is over.
A bit, trying to make the pieces fit to a puzzle with a million missing pieces. When I'm feeling fine is when I discover that I'm afraid to blow my cover, and there's something very wrong with this. So slip back in your hole, or get back in your cave. If I'm going down, I'm taking someone with me.